You've got to make 700 million new vehicles, and that article alone tells you there are 7 gallons of oil in every tire. Now, how are you going to get the minerals out of the ground, build the new factories? That's all hydrocarbon energy. You got to transport them, you got to melt them, you got to generate electricity, move them down, you got to make the paints out of oil, you got to wire the vehicles, that's the plastic, you got to... Do you understand that it's a no-win solution? Professor David Goodstein of the California Institute of Technology wrote a great book. Says very clearly it takes 30 years to change an energy infrastructure. 30 years? We haven't even dealt with the infrastructure issues. Some of the mainstream stories that have acknowledged peak oil, ABC News. This just came out from MIT just 2 days ago, 3 days ago. Major oil headlines in the last year. National Geographic, BBC, Interpress News Agency, Moscow Times, Jane's Defense Weekly, Jane's Intelligence Review, one of the most respected publications on the planet. Foreign Policy in Focus, ABC News, the Sunday Times, that's of London. The Economist, I use them a lot, BBC, US News, Asia Time, Foreign Affairs, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Associated Press, Radio Free Europe, that's the CIA, folks. The Korea Times, Knight Ridder newspaper, CNN, okay? It's coming out, all right? Peak oil is real. It cannot be denied. Although the mainstream media does a wonderful job of like mentioning it but saying, don't worry about it. We're handling it. That's what scares the shit out of me. They're handling it. This just came, there's a friend of mine, Adam Porter, who is a British guy, writes now for Al Jazeera. He used to be a big writer in England, and I wrote when he published a magazine there called Zero. And I wrote for him when he was there. Now he writes for Al Jazeera because he can get the truth out of Al Jazeera. The Al Jazeera English website's actually a damn good site. So he wrote this. Now, here's just a little clue as to what they're hiding. And this is what From the Wilderness does, is that, yeah, the mainstream media lies, but they have to tell the truth because there are actually people who make decisions who read them, and they know kind of where to look and how to read it. Look at this down here. This is Britain. He's writing about Britain. High fuel costs spell winter tragedy. British government. In the UK, up to 52,000 pensioners died during a cold winter. They are classified as excess deaths. That's because Great Britain is running out of energy. The North Sea is in complete decline. There's very little natural gas. And it's going to happen here. How many people heat their homes with natural gas? Which is like you don't want to admit it. It's like, how many people are gay? I'll get more hands raised than I would. How many people heat with that? Okay, how many people here think, oh no, I don't heat with natural gas, I heat with electricity, that's different. Hey, where do you think the electricity comes from? They burn nets. Okay, some of it's hydro, but for most of the country it's natural gas or coal. Here's an interesting quote. And this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is how I might present to you absolute proof that peak oil is real. Quote, if the actions rather than the words of the oil business's major players provide the best gauge of how they see the future, then ponder the following. Crude oil prices have doubled since 2001, but oil companies have increased their budgets for exploring new oil fields by only a small fraction. Likewise, U.S. refineries are working close to capacity, yet no new refinery has been constructed since 1976. And oil tankers are fully booked, but outdated ships are being decommissioned faster than new ones are being built. Is that logical? It is logical only if you understand that the oil companies know that there's no more oil to find and they'll never get a return on investment if they keep building new ships and new refineries that are never going to get paid for. Does that make sense? Here's really scary. Acor. right here. The American Council on Renewable Energy just had a meeting. This is December 14th in Washington. And basically what the thrust of the story was, if one actionable priority could be distilled from the chorus of support expressed for renewables, that's wind, solar, all the warm, fuzzy, progressive stuff we like, which I like, which is great. Problems with it, we'll get there in a minute. Of the American Council on Renewable Energy, it's that the time has come to shift the nation's priorities from an era of research and development to one of major deployment. Now, wait a minute. I grew up and my father was doing work for Martin Marietta on the Titan 3C and other kind of super top secret projects. R&D was the big word. Deployment meant you put it in the field now. And what this whole article says is that renewables have not been anywhere close to perfected, refined. The technology doesn't exist. The infrastructure doesn't exist to make them replace oil. But what the story says is, if you don't put whatever you got in the field now, we're done anyway. That's very scary. And you know who one of the big guys in this whole operation is? A guy by the name of James Woolsey. I think he's mentioned here on this page. You know who James Woolsey was? Bill Clinton's first director of Central Intelligence. This is riddled with intelligence people. And what they said was basically, stop trying to make your solar better, stop trying to make your windmills better, stop trying to just get it out now. Woolsey is really scary because he's really involved in something I read about in Discover magazine called thermal depolymerization. And you read the story, it is a non-scientific story because they don't talk about something called net energy, how much energy you have to put into something versus how much you get out. But Woolsey was really behind this thermal depolymerization, which is some kind of a machine where you can throw in animal waste, animals, and come out with oil. And this article actually said in Discover magazine, which is Disney, that if you throw in a 175-pound man, you'll come out with 30 liters of high-quality oil. And James Woolsey is behind this. Soylent oil. I mean, give me a break.